travel tips that help you on your next adventure. Your camp hosts, Deborah and Barry Benton, are full-time RVers in search of quaint bookstores, cozy coffee shops with great Wi-Fi, and epic photography opportunities, all to share with you. So pull up your chair and join us in the virtual campground. Welcome to the virtual campground. We are so glad you are here, and we hope you can hear us. If you are out there, looks like we've got a few people there. Let us know in the comments if you can hear us.
Yes, please. I see that Karen is there, and Karen, we're going to be talking with her quite a bit more later in the show, so you'll get to meet her.
Honored guest.
She is. She is our special guest.
Sorry I didn't get a chance to meet you, Karen, but yeah, glad you're here.
And I'm excited about this interview. It was fun. It was fun to talk to her. Great fun to read her books. So we'll talk more about that in a minute.
Yeah.
In the meantime, why don't you tell everybody where we are right now?
Knotty Pine RV Resort, and it's outside of Camas. Okay, Camas, Utah, which is not too far from Park City, about 20 minutes or so. And then, 45 minutes or so into Salt Lake.
Yep.
Yeah, lovely place.
Yep.
Highly recommend it. Nice, clean campground. And
right by the river. So we get to hear the river when we're outside. If
you do come out to Camas, Utah, to this particular campground, you don't have much of an AT&T signal, I'll tell you that. But we've got pretty clear sky to the north, and we are running off Starlink tonight. So knock on wood, we'll be able to have a good connection for the rest of the show.
We do have a picture of our camper here in the campground.
Do we?
We do.
Look at that.
Look at that. Look.
All the
Still
snow.
Quite a bit of snow, though in the last 2 days, quite a bit has also melted. And we did have several neighbors when we first got here, but now they've dispersed. And so apparently these are people that live here pretty much all the year, and they have their winter spot and their summer spot, and they're moving to their summer spot now.
Yeah.
Which is sort of more on the outside of the campground. Some of them closer to the river, some of them just kind of over there.
Yeah.
And then we also have a picture, and this is one of the reasons why we're here, to see these beautiful mountains.
Yeah, it's just a gorgeous mountain range. I have forgotten the name of that mountain range, but it's the Park City ski area, Brighton, Alta. I mean, it's just a lot of ski areas around here.
Well, there's the Unitah. I'm not sure I'm saying them right. Uintah, and the Wasatch.
Easy for you to say.
No, apparently not. So, but we are here, and part of the reason we came here is because you have some meeting work to do.
Yep, got a meeting down in Salt Lake City next week, so we wanted to post up a little closer, so
and we wanted to come see this area.
Yeah.
And we have a special guest today.
Yay! Everybody say hello.
Look who it is. It's our
Drew
son.
Drew's here visiting.
So exciting. You might want to come down so you can see your head. There you go.
Say hi, Drew.
There's the camera.
Hello.
That's Drew, our oldest son. He was in the
Thanks,
neighborhood, and so he stopped by to see us.
Yep, so he's on his way to either more college or work. We don't know, but...
No, he's actually on his way to Europe. He is meeting up with my sister, your sister-in-law, and her family, and they're going to see a little bit of Europe.
Yep. Yeah,
That's exciting.
Yeah, if you're going to Europe, look him up.
He'll be in London and Italy and Sweden, I think.
Yeah, probably staying in some hostels. I don't know if that's your thing, but if it is, look for him.
Yeah, please do. Watch out for him, please. Yes, and it is a gorgeous view, Steve. Thank you. Yes, we agree. It's been really pretty. Right here, it's still pretty brown, so I'm kind of excited to watch. We'll be here for a whole month. And so I'm assuming...
It'll be fun to see that transition.
Yeah, a lot less snow and a lot more green.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it earlier. It's pretty amazing how much snow we've lost just in these 2 days.
Though, I hear we might get more.
Monday is, they're predicting a decent chance of more snow. So that's crazy. We got to get our heated hose. Our heated hose broke on our last trip, our last day. And so we've got a new one on the way. And hopefully it'll be here by Monday. Because you're going to be here by yourself.
I'll be by myself, exactly. So, question of the week. I'm curious, the people in the chat, and please comment at the bottom if you're watching this later, but what destination would you like to learn more about? Is there a destination that you'd like to go to that we might be able to find out some information and share for you?
Yeah,
to see
maybe it's
later.
a place we've been or a place we're going.
Yep. Maybe we're the expert. Maybe we can find an expert.
Yeah,
So, so let's talk about what we're going to talk about. Want to do
sure, absolutely. We're going to talk about
that?
books.
We are. So everybody knows I love to read, and so I'm trying to remember where I learned about Karen. I think that she responded to an email that I had sent and found out that she wrote these books that are adjacent to RVing. So in other words, her books have travel or RVing at the core of them. She has
That's
three
pretty fun.
three different series plus some extra books, right, Karen? And she they're fun books. I've
Hmm.
read now three of them, two of them in the Time Traveler series, and one of them in the Franny Shoemaker series. So I've really enjoyed them. And so I thought it would be fun to talk to somebody that is an RVer and has written about RVing. And you get some great fun tips when you are reading her books. She does include in some of them some tips about RVing.
Nice.
And she also talks about campgrounds. The books take place at different campgrounds, the Franny Shoemaker. And they are usually based on a campground in Iowa, which I told her in the interview, you'll see we haven't been to Iowa. So now
No.
we're going to get some ideas from her.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so y'all enjoy this interview and we will be in chat talking with you. As is. Well, Karen, welcome to the virtual campground. We're so pleased to have you. I wanted to have you on. As most of the people know, I am a huge reader, and my favorite thing to do as we're traveling around the United States is go to bookstores and buy books and read books. So I'm excited to get to talk to an actual author. So tell me, when did you first write your first book?
In 2012, I retired in 2011, and I'd always loved to write, but I never had time. And the background is that my husband gave me a Kindle for Christmas that year, and we were going camping that spring, and I wanted to download um, a book for the weekend. And I love mysteries, and I thought it would be fun to find something to do with the campground. But um, on Amazon at that time, there weren't any adult books that involved camping and a mystery. So I decided to write one.
That is so cool. And so your books, for those people that aren't familiar, you have three series.
Yes,
One is uh, definitely a mystery series. And what do you call the Frankie and Larry series? Larry series.
Franny, Franny Shoemaker.
Franny.
Yeah, I have. This is
Yes,
the
that's what I
first,
just read.
the first one that came out in 2012,
Okay. So those are
and
called the
they're all
Shoemaker mysteries.
Franny Shoemaker Campground Mysteries is what it says on the book.
Okay.
It doesn't,
Okay.
but and there are 10 of those now. I'm working on the 11th. There's a prequel too that I wrote that is available free on Amazon. It's called We Are Not Buying a Camper.
It sounds familiar.
And it's just a short little intro on how they got into camping. Um, and that series involves a group of friends who are mostly retired, and they camp together a lot and um, occasionally stumble over dead bodies.
Just occasionally stumble. Yeah.
Yeah,
So and when you first wrote that first book, it's Bat and Bones. And as you said, you wrote it right after you retired. And in the book, Franny is also a retired social studies teacher, which is what you were, correct?
I was for 22 years,
Yeah.
and then I worked for American College Testing for 18 years. Um, but yes, I spent a lot of time as a junior high teacher
So
and lived
so
in Telebach.
Franny and Larry, are they basically and their friends, are they basically based on you and your camping friends?
Not really. People accuse me of that. Franny is an only child. She
Hmm.
has natural curly hair, which I certainly don't have. I'm the oldest of six children. She's very um, adventurous and takes risks. I'm not that kind of person. Larry, her husband, is a retired policeman and he's more of a stickler for rules. My husband was not at all. He always saw a rule as something that
It
should
can
be
be
broken.
broken.
But we did camp a lot with his sister and her husband and several other friends. And Larry's sister Jane Ann um, is camps with them, but the personalities are quite different.
But it gave you a
So
nice structure. And like you said, it's something you were doing and then realized there was a gap. There were no campground mysteries.
right, there are several now, but when I started, there weren't any
And the
others.
and the campgrounds that the shoemakers go to are actual campgrounds you visited, correct?
Almost all of them. Bats and Bones is based on one of the most popular Iowa parks, Makokata Caves, which has bat caves, and that's where that name came from.
Got it.
But I think five or six are based on Iowa parks. One takes place in southeast Minnesota, one in New Mexico, one in Missouri, one in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
And
Um,
and what I noticed is, so you mentioned in the book, or I've only read so far Bat and Bones, and I'm reading the Time Traveler camper first one right now. And I've noticed that you mention in the note that it's based on, as you said, that campground, but you don't actually call it by that campground name. And I was curious as to why.
well, because I wanted to add a couple things that don't exist in the park. So I thought if people think it's supposed to be exactly that park, um, there is a cabin in it that an old pioneer cabin. Well, I guess there actually is one in at Makokata Caves, but I've never seen it, and I did not know that at the time I wrote the
Oh,
book.
wow.
So
Okay.
uh, the the park is similar in layout, and the caves are the big attraction there, and there are boardwalks and everything that are described there. But
And so, okay, so then you have, like I said, you have another series. It's the Time Traveler one, and that has three
yeah,
books in it.
yes, and I'm kind of outlining a fourth one there. That actually is my most popular
Oh, really?
series. This is my most popular book,
Okay.
the time travel trailer, and it's a woman who buys a vintage camper. It's called a covered wagon, and they
Mm-hmm.
were the most popular campers in the 30s in the country, as I understand it. But um, she finds this at a friend's house, and he offers to sell it to her. And the first time she sleeps in it, she wakes up in a different decade. So that's kind of the premise behind that series.
And where did you come up with that idea? That's, I mean, it's fascinating. Like, were you at a campground and that just sort of you thought that would be fascinating?
Well, I'm part of a group that's called the Midwest Glampers. And the first campout I went to with them, a lot of them restore vintage trailers. And at the same time, I'd read Stephen King's book,
11.
11/22/63,
Mm-hmm.
about this and it involves time travel. And in that, the time portal is a dining car. If you've read it, there's a dining car
Mm-hmm.
that is a restaurant or something, and um, you went through that. It's been a long time. Anyway, those vintage campers, I thought, a camper would make a great time portal because you could move it around where
Yeah.
you wanted to. And as someone in a review said one time, it's got to be a lot more comfortable than a phone booth, like,
True.
oh. But I've gotten some interesting comments. My favorite review on the time travel trailer is someone said, I like the book, but it's pretty far fetched.
Well, yeah.
You think?
That's so funny.
Yeah. So, anyway, but
And then you have
yeah, there's three.
a third series, and that's a fairly new series, right?
Yes, that was a couple years ago. Um, it's called The Mystery Sisters, and I only have one copy of that
Okay.
here. I guess
Double Dutch
white is
Death.
not.
Okay.
Yeah, and that is loosely based on my grandmother and great aunt. My grandmother lived in southern Minnesota, and she had a sister-in-law who taught phys ed into her 70s in Missouri. And Aunt Mary drove a little yellow Studebaker. And every summer she would come up to Minnesota. And I know my grandmother's doctors said, Betty, you really shouldn't travel that much anymore. And Aunt Mary would say, let's go to Connecticut. And off they'd go. And um, they had some great times. But my cousin said to her one time, you must really get along well, that you can travel together. And my grandmother said, oh, no, we fight all the time. So, uh, so I kind of thought, these two sisters could travel around and mostly stay with relatives because they're one of them in particular is very cheap, and neither one of them is poor, but they're trying to save money, and so they frequently stay with cousins or other siblings and so on, and happen to run into mysteries while they're doing that. So they have a red Studebaker.
That's
I think it's a
awesome.
1950 Commander, but I'm not sure. I can't
Can't remember. That's okay. That's okay. That's fascinating. I love it. So, of your three series, do you have a favorite character that's closest to your heart?
Well,
Is that like picking a favorite
not
child?
really. I guess Franny was my first one, so I and I've written the most about her. Um, but I don't think I could
Pick one.
really say for sure. The time travel series is a little bit different than the other two. I wrote the first book as a standalone. I didn't plan on making it a series. And I have a reader out in California who wrote to me and she said, oh, I so hope there's going to be more of these books. Well, the nature of the time travel, she takes this trailer out, and all kinds of dire things happen, of course, or it wouldn't be a good story. Um, so by the end, any person with common sense is going to say, never again.
Right, exactly.
Let's lock this thing up. We are never. So she does that at the end of the first book. Well, then I had to come up with a way that she would
Reason.
use it again. But anyway, this reader, and I've never met this woman, but we've corresponded for a long time. And she said, she gave me an idea. She said, well, what if it has the Sisters on the Fly, which is another women's camping group, and she's a member of. And what if this happens and that happens and so on? She practically gave me the plot. So, and then the same thing happened with the third one. She said,
Oh,
you should have one on Route 66. So the third one
oh,
is
perfect.
called Trailer Get Your Fix, and it's on Route 66.
I
But
love that.
that's always a dilemma, is how many times is this woman going to do this again and
It
swear
has
up and down she never will?
exactly. Yeah. 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 I don't know, about quarter of the way through that first one, and I'm like, okay, well, they're not going to get back in that trailer for sure. They've had a few
Well,
things happen. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. So, what I love about your book, you do place them in camping. Obviously, RVing is very primary to the premise of the book. You do some great camping tips through the book, and then you have some actual tips at the end of the chapters, or at the end of the book, in my case, because it's an ebook, I guess. And so that's great fun for those of us that are campers, because it's kind of an inside scoop, and you can actually, there are a lot of times as I was reading, I'm like, oh, I've met that camper. So I've
yeah.
seen that guy in the campground.
I always say I don't make it up. Everything in those books, except for the murders, is something we've seen or done or someone has told us about. So it's um, very much, I think it's very realistic. You always get interesting things in reviews, and I've had a couple people say, she obviously doesn't know anything about RVing or has never been RVing. And I thought, well, I have, but
Not their kind of RVing, maybe. Yeah. But
maybe not.
you are an RVer. You do have a camper, correct?
Yes.
And how long have you been
Uh,
RVing?
well, my husband and I bought a trailer in 2006. We tent camped for years with our kids, and then they got to the high school busy age. We decided we wanted to get back into it, but we didn't want to sleep on the ground. And so we bought a trailer in 2006 and traded up for a few more amenities. It was the same size in 2017. And then my husband passed away in 2020. And I didn't want to quit camping, but I wasn't about to learn to drive that truck and pull that 30-foot trailer. So I sold it and I bought a 25-foot Class A motorhome. Her name is Agatha
Uh-huh.
for Agatha, and
Awesome.
she works very well for me. I camp with the Midwest Glampers I mentioned, and our old camping group. That's who's going. I'm going with tomorrow, just about an hour away. Where it's kind of a shakedown we do every year. Um, and I have once or twice by myself just to see if I could do it. But I I love it. I've always loved the outdoors, and I will hate it when I have to give it up.
Well, hopefully that won't be for a long time. So, actually, Iowa is one state, that's where you're from, and that is one state that Barry and I have not been to yet. So, tell me maybe your top two places I've got to go when we get to Iowa, hopefully in 2024.
The Probably the most different parks and popular ones are Makokata Caves and Backbone, which is the site of To Cache a Killer that involves geocaching. But those are both in northeastern Iowa. But there's a lot of really nice parks, and we just mainly park or camp at state parks and Corps of Engineers campgrounds. Um, because I have a senior pass, and it's half price.
That's awesome. It's
But
something to look forward to.
the Backbone and Makokata Caves being in the northeastern part of Iowa, it's so different than most of Iowa. People rolling fields, and that is a great deal of Iowa. But that northeast corner has a lot of limestone cliffs and caves and pretty rivers. And so I guess I would recommend that first. But
Okay.
um,
Okay.
I you mentioned the hints and recipes. Um, I put all those together. I can't remember. It was maybe after 8 books in a little book that's called Happy Camper Tips and Recipes. And most of those were sent to me by readers.
Oh,
They're
fun.
not, they weren't my suggestions particularly, but they different people have, when I'm ready to publish a book, I send a notice to my email list and put it on my Facebook page that I'm looking for hints and recipes. So
So that way, because yeah, after what now, eight of one series, 10, you start to run out of hints and recipes, I would guess. So that's probably good.
oh yeah, very early on I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. Yeah. So in case we have anybody that's listening to our interview and they are a author themselves or want to be a writer, what tools do you use? Because you self-publish, correct?
Yes, I do.
And you sell on Amazon, so people can get your book on Amazon. I'll make sure to put the link in the show notes. But what tools
Yes,
do you use to actually write your books and publish them?
I use software called Scrivener um, to do my writing. I've been told by the Apple people in Iowa City that my computer is now vintage. so, so there might be newer things out there that I can't
There you
use,
go.
but it still works.
There you go.
It's not nearly as old as I am. So, uh, but and I use one of the reasons I don't want to give it up is I started formatting my books in um, Apple Pages was a
Yeah,
software they used to have that was for formatting books, and now they've changed it so it's like for brochures and pamphlets and things like that, and it's not set up for book
books.
publishing. So when I have to give up this computer, I'm going to lose that software and I'll have to learn something else.
But that's okay. You'll learn something else and you'll still write lovely books.
Well, and I would like to just quickly explain. I did start out with the idea that I would get an agent and go the traditional route. And I had an agent in New York who does a lot of these are called cozy mysteries because they're less violent and characters are more important. Anyway, he did several public or was an agent for several series, and he asked for the full manuscript, which is a real plus. And then I started finding out, and at the time I was 69 years old, and um, he, I read that it could take up to 6 months for him to look at the manuscript, and then another year to find a publisher, and then another year to get your. I thought I could be dead by then, Um, and at the same time, self-publishing was changing dramatically. And the royalties are better because you don't have the middleman.
Right.
And I enjoy the formatting, and um, if unless you're Stephen King or Michael Connolly or somebody like that, um, even if you get a traditional publisher, you're going to have to do most of your own publicity and marketing. And uh, so I've I've been very happy with that.
Oh, good. Well, and it's obviously working well. You've got a great series of books on Amazon. You have a great website, which I'll also put in the show notes so people can learn more about your books and about you. You do blogs. It was fascinating to read more about your camping. I also was really interested, at least with Bats and Bones. I don't know if that's true with all your books, but your sister was the cover artist, right? She created the cover.
Yes, she did the first two, Bats and Bones. Oh no, the first three, Bats and Bones and the Blue Coyote and um, Pete and Repeat.
Okay.
And then my other sister formatted the book covers. Um, but when I got to the point, I must have been the fourth one. Anyway, um, they weren't able to do it, and I worked with another cover artist who came up with the band across the top and the photos on the bottom and so on. But it's still my sister Gretchen's drawings. Yes.
I love that. I love that. Well, this has been a delight for me to get to talk to somebody that's written a book and is an author, and I really are enjoying your books and love how it shows a different aspect of RV life. Hopefully, none of us ever have to find a dead
Right.
body, but it's still fun to read about something and have RVing be part of the storyline. So that's exciting. So thank you very much, Karen, for doing the books, and thank you so much for being here to talk to us.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And like I said, I will put your website and Amazon links in the show notes. Is there anything else you want people to make sure that they know or find for you?
Well, they are not just for ebooks, but there are paperbacks and they're on Audible also.
Okay. Awesome. Perfect. Okay, well, I'll make sure to get all those links and put them in the show notes. Thank you again, and
Okay.
thank you. I hope you have a great camping trip this week.
Oh, it's supposed to be about 50 and cloudy and maybe rain. So,
Maybe, hopefully not
but
rain.
that's camping.
Yep, that is. You're right. All right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What a fascinating lady.
I know.
So many books.
I know. Since 2012. That's a pretty short time to write
Very prolific.
quite a few books. Exactly. I know.
Yeah.
And you asked me a question. She does have books on Audible, and the narrator is someone I heard her interviewed about this, and it's someone that she, I guess she went through some folks that do narration and found this person and liked the way she read, and so that's the person that reads her books.
Very cool.
Yeah, it is. It's nice.
Well, fascinating.
And I asked her a question in the chat about, because I was curious, I forgot to ask her in the interview about the Covered Wagon brand. And I meant to get a picture to show you guys, but you can Google it. But yeah, she just found that was one that was made in the 1930s, she says. And there is one in of course, the National RV Museum in Elkhart. So.
Very cool.
Yeah. That's kind of fun, huh?
Yeah, very fun.
Yeah. So,
thanks, Karen.
Yeah, I really enjoyed getting to talk to you, and I am enjoying the books. I'm on the now third, and I guess currently final, but I know you're writing another one in the Time Travel Camper. And she's right. After the first one, I thought, okay, yeah, I could see there could be a second one. They'd get back in that camper, but after what happens in the second one, I'm like, they're not getting back in that thing. And so it was kind of interesting. I've read enough of the third.
Say that about all mysteries, though. Why are you going into the house?
Don't go into the house.
Why not to go in the house?
But yeah, so that one's kind of fun. Luckily, no murder, but definitely tension and what do you call it? Thrills. No, what is it that they call it? Suspenseful. Oh. And then the murders happen in the Franny Shoemaker and in the Mystery Sisters. I've only read one of the Franny Shoemaker so far, and they kind of stumble upon a dead person, which is kind of, hopefully that doesn't happen to any of us in our camping. But I will say, as you're reading her books, because she absolutely has RV'd and talks about things that you do when you're RVing, like sit around campfires and play games and stuff. But she also mentions like the guy that's backing his RV up and doesn't probably do it the right way, or doesn't know the hoses, how they work, and you need to get closer. All those people we all see as we're sitting around and watch. So it is kind of gives you a little smile when you're like, oh, I've met that guy. So
were any characters stabbed with some more sticks?
No, not so far as I've read so far.
Okay, well that's just an idea, Karen. That's from me to you.
A s'more.
A s'more stick.
What would you call that? S'more murder?
S'more stabbing, s'more murder, s'more murders. Yeah, that would be the title. S'more murders.
Yes.
Okay. Well, there, Karen, you're welcome.
Yes. All right.
All right. What else do we have to talk about?
Oh, she's
grilling this. Oh my God, that's fantastic. Okay, that's great.
Oh, barbecue contest. Okay, we know somebody that might be really interested in that book.
Yes,
good to know.
We have some friends that enter barbecue competitions, and
so if you need anybody to give you some expert advice, I know who to put you in touch with.
Tell you all the in and outs of how barbecue competitions work.
All good, bad, no, I don't know. I'm sure they're all pleasant and lovely.
We know another RVer that's written a book.
We do, actually, yeah. Our friend, Charlie Grace, who we interviewed back in November of 2020, she has written a book. As when we talked to her before, we talked to her about traveling with your dog, and she has now written a book, RV with your dog.
That's cool. She knows how to do that. She does a lot of RVing with her dog. She does a lot of RV.
Yeah, that's mainly what she does, isn't it? So that's kind of a fun thing. We haven't talked to her yet to learn more about the book, but I'm sure we will.
Fun.
So yeah.
Shout out to Charlie Grace.
Exactly. Okay, so I also found this information the other day, and I thought this was, a couple weeks ago we talked about campgrounds.
We did.
We had really nice discussion about campgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
And something called the Lawn Love, which seems lawn like your lawn in the front yard.
LAWN. Okay.
Love.
Okay.
So it's a company.
Okay.
Lawnlove.com. They wrote a blog on the best and worst camping states to camp in. And I found this kind of interesting, and they based it on a bunch of criteria that we would all use to think about where we want to go camping, and then they had those in categories of access. So do they have, how many campgrounds are there? Are they easy to get to, etc. Quality based on like reviews from the campers.
Okay.
Supplies that you can find, rentals or RV supplies in the state. Safety, based on death and safety records, and affordability. So they looked at all the states and looked at this criteria, built this like rubric, right? And ranked for each of those 5, each state 1 to 50.
Okay.
And then they weighted that and aggregated. So they came up with they have them ranked 1 through 50. So you can go to their site to find out where your state or a state you're interested in ranked, and for each category. But I found it kind of interesting. You want to hear about
fascinating.
The 5 worst?
I do.
Or the 5 best
5
first?
worst? Oh. Let's start off with the negative and end with the positive.
That's a good idea. Okay. Coming in 5th worst, Mississippi.
Mississippi. Okay.
So Mississippi apparently is there, a lot of it for their safety. Natural disasters. They get a lot of hurricanes and flooding and stuff there. They also were pretty high on expense and high on not having very many campgrounds. So not great quality campgrounds or access to campgrounds, but it costs you more. So
interesting.
Kind of interesting. 4th worst, Nevada.
Well, you just don't hear much about Nevada.
No, and that was really more, they were 49th on quality and 43rd on access. Now, the good news is they're like number 10 in affordability. So they are affordable. They got all
the free RV camping at casinos.
That's true. They also did pretty poorly on safety. And one of the commenters said it was probably due to Lake Mead being in Nevada, because there's a lot of drownings in Lake Mead. So
interesting.
So yeah. 3rd worst, I'm very sorry. Louisiana.
Oh my gosh.
Louisiana.
We're usually at the bottom of that ranking somewhere in all rankings.
In all rankings. That was mostly due to poor access and quality. So not enough campgrounds and poor quality campgrounds as it is.
I can tell we have very limited experience camping in Louisiana, my home state. But one time we did, we had so many fire ants in our ants, and then I think that's where we picked up the stink bug things.
Stink bugs, yeah. They didn't have stink bugs as one of the criteria, but it's
should.
a bad one if you ask me. Yeah. But it also does have a lot of natural disasters from the hurricanes and flooding. So that's another point against Louisiana. 2nd worst was Rhode Island.
Rhode Island?
Yeah. So I think it's mostly because
it's such negative about Rhode Island.
I think it's because it's such a small state. They hardly have any campgrounds, and the ones they have apparently are not very good. They were 50th on quality. So doesn't sound like you, but
no idea.
You could probably camp in the state right next to it and drive into.
That's true.
Rhode Island. That's what I was looking for. And then North Dakota was the last and worst. North Dakota. And again, it was a worst in almost every category except for safety. It was number 1. Really safe state.
Very few people are there.
But apparently you can't find good campgrounds. So
fascinating.
Interesting. Okay. You want to know the best now?
I do.
Okay.
Let's end on a high.
Number 1. Or should we do number 5? Which one?
5.
Okay. Number 5. New York. State of New York.
Oh, well, the state of New York is beautiful.
Yes.
And,
I mean, we've camped in New York a couple times. Yeah. And nice campgrounds, lots of hills. It's really pretty once you get out of the city. Number 4, Florida, which makes a lot of sense, right?
Lots of
campgrounds. Of course, I don't know that you can get into them, but lots of campgrounds. Number 3,
Texas. Woohoo!
Yep. Number 3 was Texas. Number 2 is Washington, where we're headed.
Oh, as in Seattle,
the state,
and Oregon. I mean Seattle. Okay.
Because they have good access and good quality. They're a little low on. No, they're about in the middle of safety and affordability, so that's good. California, number 1.
No.
And mostly that is because they're number 1 in access and quality, but they are 50. Or not 50, but they're low in safety and they were really low in affordability. So I don't know that weighted average makes them number 1, but I think Washington and Texas, which came kind of more
middle,
middle.
categories.
Most of them, Texas was 15 in safety and 19 in affordability. So that to me,
Right.
I think Texas, of course I'm prejudiced, should be number one.
Well, let's just make it so. Texas is number one.
We rank it so. But anyway, I just found that to be an interesting article, and so something just to keep in mind when we're all talking so much about how hard it is to get into campgrounds.
We've ruined Jimmy's
I'm
plans.
sorry, Jimmy. Yeah, is North Dakota the one that wants you to be there the last? Or
I think they're the ones
Dakota?
that give you a gift somehow. I don't know if that's the last state you go to.
You have to write them or something and tell them. Yeah. Thank you, Karen. Karen says that Fort Abraham Lincoln State Park in North Dakota is lovely. Good to know, because we will be going to North Dakota because at some point we have to check it off the list.
Good Lord willing.
Right. That's exactly right.
So there you go. Jimmy, go to Fort Abraham Lincoln State Park and your plans won't be ruined.
There you go. Good idea. See, that's the power of this community. We help each other out.
That's right. All right. Let's see. What else do we have? We have we have an interview with a lovely couple that are great friends of ours. And it's on the way to Kalispell. Look at that.
Oh,
okay.
Good to know.
That's a good segue because we're about to talk about Kalispell.
Good job, Steve. You just knew it.
Yeah. So we had a lovely talk with our good friends Brit and Josh, and they are in Big Fork, Montana. They have a lovely little campground. They run a campground there. They have a little piece of property to do some stuff on. So it's a beautiful place. We did a little interview with them, and that'll be next week.
We're going to show that next week and talk more about Montana, because why would we want to talk about Montana and specifically the Flathead Valley area? Why?
Yes.
Why, Barry? Why?
We would want to talk about Camp Carpe Diem, September 28th through October 1st. This is in Kalispell and Flathead Valley, Montana. It's going to be gorgeous. It's our third annual. This was the group last year. Could you see a more fun group of people than that? I mean,
you want to have your picture in that picture.
You want to be in that picture. That's right. And I mean, it's just going to be gorgeous. We're going to be up in Kalispell, and that's about 45 minutes or so from Glacier National Park, and it's just going to be a really fun time. We're really looking forward to it, and we're going to get to see our friends Brit and Josh, along with another 30 or 40 of our other sweet friends like the Corellics and Jimmy, hopefully. Who else? We're going to see. We had Larry Macy, lots of people. So going to be fun. So stay tuned for that fun interview with Josh and Brit.
Walter didn't make the interview the cap.
No,
but,
Walter.
But Brit and Josh, they have now been living in the Big Fort area about, we decided 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so
like
we picked their brain on where are the great places to go, things to do and see in that Flathead Valley area. So you'll be sure, even if you're not coming to Camp Carpe Diem, which of course you should, but even if you're not, it's going to be a great conversation and learn a lot more about that part of Montana, which is, so this whole Flathead Valley is right above Flathead Lake.
So this is, we can't do that for Montana.
Montana's more like this. So, but if you go pretty much due north from Bozeman, right? North and west, I think it is.
I have to look at a map.
But we'll figure that out by next week and share that information with you. But anyway,
So Johnny comes.
I know. I really worry about him.
Yeah.
Johnny doesn't want to be in pictures.
We've met Johnny, but I'm not sure that was really Johnny we met.
No, probably not. I called him by a different name, in fact, in person.
That's true.
Yes.
Johnny, just so you know, there was one person in that photo that wasn't there for the pic.
He got shopped in.
Yeah, he got photoshopped in.
See if you can figure out who it is.
We'll Photoshop you in if we have to.
Or Photoshop him out if he doesn't.
Oh, that's true. If you don't want to be in there,
exactly,
that's true.
Exactly. Well, this has been fun, and I hope you guys enjoyed our conversation with Karen. And Karen, thank you so much for being in the chat and answering even more questions after the interview. Good luck on the next books. I'm looking forward to seeing them. And let's see, I think that's pretty much all we have for today. If you want to help us here at the virtual campground, you can invite some friends to come and watch next week's show live, so we have even more people in the chat, because it's always more fun when there's people in the chat.
Yep, hit that like button, and until we can meet you in person, we'll see you in the virtual campground.
See you around the campfire.
Bye.